I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I feel like that's a lie. You just had a cough. COVID's
Okay,
still
so
going around.
I've just had COVID, but
Oh,
yeah,
well, I hope that your throat is going to get better soon.
well, so do I. It would be really nice if it did, that's for sure. So, but what can you do, really? This is going around, so you just sort of have to deal with it.
I feel like that was one of the big reasons why we made the festival's theme growth and resilience,
Mm,
specifically because we have all in very recent times had to grow exponentially and show tremendous amounts of resilience.
yes.
Uh, how have your books been going over the course of the pandemic? Over the course of the
Well,
plague?
well, I must confess that I have had huge issues with my latest book, but because not just because of the pandemic either, but because of things like floods, which we've had in Brisbane, and
Yes.
various different things that we've been dealing with, um, but also with coronavirus, because we've had I've had these problems. My publisher, because I'm traditionally published, but it's small press, so she can only do so much. And she always tries to use Australian products and services. So she tries to print things in Australia when she can. But at the beginning of the year, because I had a book released, supposedly it was supposed to be in April, my latest one, but she had stuff dropping from coronavirus at the time.
Oh,
She has four
no.
children, so all her family went down, and so we were trying to get things done, and it was all very piecemeal, and it just meant everything's gone wrong. And
Mm.
if you can imagine something that's gone wrong, it went wrong. So eventually, it was late. We managed to get it printed, but unfortunately, there've been problems with the copies we received. So
Oh, no. That's the
yes,
worst. I
so
remember
so
one
they
of
will
my,
have to. It has to be reprinted, basically.
oh,
So
no.
it's
And
how long? It's I think it's 6 weeks. Um, no, it's actually more than 2 months since the book was released, and I still don't have any copies. So
oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
it did.
That's the worst.
It's been very
It's
frustrating.
it's more common than people think, though. I've
Oh, it
had
is.
books that have come. I know authors whose books have come and the middle pages will fall out because they haven't been glued in properly.
Mhm.
My books, my very first ones, actually had like two sentences in a random spot that were three font sizes larger than the rest of the text because the
Yeah.
formatting was off.
Mm.
And then other times you'll see them, and instead of being justified format, you've got them all crooked on the side.
Mm.
It can be an absolute mess sometimes.
It can. It can indeed. So it's extremely difficult, but these are the things that authors have to deal with. So
Yes.
I I just sort of go, well, it has made it extremely difficult. And I'm sure you know as well as I do, there's times when you just go, why do I do this? What's the
Yes.
point? And there's been a
Yes.
lot of that this year. There's been
Oh, you're not
yeah. And,
alone.
and this,
You're not
this is while I'm
alone.
writing another story too. So I'm going, one day I'll be going, I should just give up. And then I'm going, no, but I love this new world I've just created. So I was like,
Yes. Yes. When you and that's the thing, writers have to write.
mm,
We're not happy unless we're doing writing. But
that's quite right.
the world's become very complicated and
It
very
has,
large.
and it's we want to not just to write, but for people to share our worlds that we've created.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
want our worlds to be out there in the public eye so that people can appreciate, can go, hey, this is a really cool place to spend time. And so it's so difficult because there's so much going on and there is so much competition. Not that we should consider ourselves in competition with writers, because we're all
It's
readers and
it's not
writers.
competition between books, it's competition between time spending activities. We're competing with
Yeah,
TV
with
shows and Netflix
Netflix.
and
Yeah,
social
exactly.
media.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I say. I have said in a previous seminar I've done blah, no, sorry, words. That I often mention to people when they're talking about, because I'm saying, look, if you want your book to sell today, your competition is Netflix.
Yes.
It's no good to write. You may admire Charles Dickens completely, but if you write in his style, it's probably not going to work, because a modern audience, even if they like Charles Dickens, he's Charles Dickens, you're not. So it's
Yes.
and it can be very difficult to deal with it, because people like to emulate the authors that they love, but that doesn't always work in a modern setting.
No, you really got to, that's one of the big changes. Like Tolkien could rant and rave about and put in long points of exposition for his audience, because this was a completely new thing. They wanted to be engulfed in that world, and the world was slower for them. They wanted to read, and this was something that I brought up with someone recently. People are they have their fandom, but now those fandoms are all 20 years old, and it's hard to get into a new fandom and have it be long standing, because in the past we would recycle the exact same content over and over again. Like you would re-watch the same movies, you would reread the same books. They were
And
your comfort series because there was nothing else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why books in, say, 200 years ago were exponentially longer, because that was the way people traveled. That was the way they experienced anything else, because most of them didn't get out of their little village. There was no TV. They could look at the newspaper, but they could only find these worlds in those pages. But now we don't have to go very far to experience different things. So it requires a heck of a lot more engagement than most people are aware of. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like you have to really saturate people with the right kind of content for them to really get engulfed in that world, to be consumed by it. And you have to be aware that they're going to go to different places too, because there's no way that we as humans can write and produce enough stuff to keep someone entertained for the rest of their lives.
Yes, if only. Or have it out regularly enough too. That's another issue also.
Yes.
I saw an author the other day on Twitter who'd had a bad review because their next book isn't out for another 6 months. And
no, that's terrible.
It's really hard. And she's going, I'm writing as fast as I can, but there's only so much you can do. And I understand completely why people want to know what's happening. And it's tricky to do that, especially if you want to keep the quality up. You really got to take time to get things right.
Yes. How do you go on with distractions in your writing?
I usually go okay. I usually save my writing for times when everyone's watching television. So that's not a problem, because I'm usually set up here in my living room. And so the TV will be on. But if I find it a distraction, I will put soothing music on headphones. And that helps me to concentrate, I find. So
that's really good, because a lot of the time we train ourselves to the music we listen to. It becomes very cognitive. So the more we repeat the same music, the more our brain is like, oh, that music's on. That's a sign that we're meant to be doing this. I have
creative time.
Yeah, I work as an acupuncturist, and so I will play the same music for my patients so they go to sleep. But I always know when I hear that music, it's work time. So I can't sleep to that music, even though it's really relaxing.
I understand.
So tell us a bit about the world that you've created.
Well, I'm on to a new one now, but the world that I've been writing about for most of my time as an author is the world of Verindon. It's another planet. And I started out in writing the first book. I had a trilogy. The first book was The Heir, very generic title. My publisher hated me for it, and that's why she rebranded it the Verindon trilogy. So there was The Heir, The Crown, and The Reign. And the first book came about when I was, my husband and I were going on a holiday to the Sunshine Coast. And our son was very young at the time. He'd fallen asleep in the back seat. And my husband loves cheesy pickup lines. And he'll just say them because he thinks they're so funny. So he'll say, hey, have you heard this one? It's so hilarious. And I was trying to think of something that I could respond with. And the only thing I could think of was where the guy says to the girl, "You're the only reason I was put on this planet." And I imagine a guy saying that to a girl, and she goes, "Yeah, right." And he goes, "No, you are the only reason I was put on this planet." And I'm going, "Oh, now why did he say that? What does it mean? You know, what's the implications of that?" And for the next week, we were on the Sunshine Coast, and my mind was completely elsewhere for the entire time because I was creating the world he came from. And so when I wrote The Air, that line is in the novel. And it's this developed as a story of a girl who's goes to a high school. She lives in America. She thinks life is normal. Halfway through the book, she finds out life isn't normal, and she goes and lives on another planet. So, and all the other books in the Verindon series have been set on the other planet. So the rest of the trilogy was. I also wrote the Verindon Alliance in 2020. That was released during the first lockdown, so that was loads of fun.
Oh goodness.
It's set about 1,000 years before the trilogy. And then the one I wrote one I just released recently is the Verindon Conspiracy, and that takes place about 10 years after the epilogue of the trilogy. So it does include a lot of the same characters, but the focus is on a different person. So,
oh, that's exciting. So, what makes Verindon different?
It's well, it depends which time period you're in, really. But one of the most exciting things I love about it is the fact that the sky is a rainbow. Basically, the entire sky has all the colors. At least there's a low set of clouds, low-hanging clouds over the surface of the entire planet the whole time. And the rainbow is the sky under those clouds. Above the clouds, it's a different color. It's a turquoise kind of color. But under the clouds, it is a rainbow. Basically, they have almost the entire time it's raining at least slightly, but so slight it's more like a mist. And that makes the sky take on a rainbow hue. So the inhabitants of Verindon all love color. It's something that's ingrained into them. They wear colorful clothes. They always, everything, you know, all their homes are filled with color. They don't like drab. They never wear black, for instance, or anything like that, because everything's got to have a color to it. So that's one of the interesting things about it. At the time that the trilogy is set, because there's two different races or species really on the planet, and they can interbreed, although they don't usually, called the Vendel and the Verindal. And at the time the trilogy takes place, the Verindal are the ruling class, and the Vendel, by choice of their own leadership, have become more the secret police, bodyguards. But they are basically used very badly. They have special abilities. They have the ability to go into the safety zone, which means that their faces change and become terrifying to look at, and they have increased abilities, so they can defeat their opponent, and they instinctively know what their opponent is doing, so that they can overcome whatever the opponent's strength, and their strength wrenches up as well. So they have all these special abilities. And so they are used as secret police. They're used as police generally, but a lot of the times their lives are very regulated. They're not allowed their bond partners, as they're called, are chosen for them. And when they have children, they're taken away from them immediately and put into the academy. So they don't even know if they've had a boy or a girl. So yeah, it's quite heady stuff, and the missions they're sent on are quite dangerous. So it's not unusual for them to be killed, and they're trained not to love. Now there is a significant reason for that, which I'm not going to say what it is, because that comes out in the trilogy. But
people have to read the book for that.
Yes, they do.
Oh, wonderful! That sounds absolutely delightful. No, that's fine. I think everyone's got a little bit of a cough, even if it's just lingering at the moment. It's now part of human society.
It is, rather.
We all have a cough. So what will you be speaking about at the Logan Writers Festival this year?
I will be talking about my novel is ready to be published, or is it? A lot of people, when they they come to writing a book. I mean, because writing a book is the fun part, as you well know.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people, it always worries me when I hear someone say, oh, it's so hard writing this manuscript. And I'm going, oh, okay, that's the easy bit.
You're on your first one, clearly.
Exactly. That's the fun part. You're supposed to be enjoying that bit. And so I know too, I've heard so many horror stories, and because I'm a professional editor as well, not just an author. And so
eating something at the moment. Why? This is not your sock. All right, go away. It's not your sock. Oh, she's so offended. You can't have that sock.
Lucky my cat isn't here. My cat usually sits right there, and she'd be looking at us going, oh, you're doing that again. Oh, shut up. I'm trying to sleep. But she's gone elsewhere today. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So I'm a professional editor as well. So I see a lot of first-time authors, and I deal with a lot of people, and I know the mistakes that are made. I've seen a lot of them, and it's very difficult to deal with. And I also remember very well when the first time I did NaNoWriMo, which I don't do all the time, but I remember there was a girl in the group I was in who said, I've just finished my manuscript. I'm going to upload it to Smashwords. And I thought, whoa, you haven't even been through it.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, no. But, I didn't want to say that because I don't like coming across as this kind of know-it-all, at least not in that kind of environment. When people have hired me as a professional editor, it's my job to be a know-it-all. That's what they're paying me for. So I'll do it in that kind of, and certainly in a seminar setup, I will do it there too, because that's what I'm there for. Yeah. So what I'm talking about is what you need to do prior to trying to get your novel published. I have a checklist of things that you need to do first in relation to self-editing, and making sure that you covered all the areas that are the best ways forward in terms of engaging an audience. So I've got a checklist of that. Then I also talk about professional editing and how important it is, and how it can give you a leg up over, because some authors don't bother to get a professional to look at their work, and it can help so much to especially since we all like to think that our books are perfect. And one of my hardest job as an editor, I like to say, my job is to tell you your baby is ugly and needs plastic surgery. It is something nobody wants to hear. And I get that sometimes, because I'll send something back. I'll send a report back and a corrected manuscript, and I'll have someone tell me, but my friends said it was fine. And I'm going, well, your friends aren't professionals, and they don't know the industry, and they're your friends, so they're going to say it's great. So it's and personally, as an author, I would never let one of my manuscripts go out without another professional editor looking at it, because I know I'm too close to it to see it objectively.
100%.
Yeah. So I'll be talking about the importance of a professional edit, and so people know what the best way is, because a lot of people do, and it's very hard to I work for an assisted self-publishing company as an editor, and I will frequently beg clients, because we do what they want. We give them, if they want cover design, we give them that. If they want editing, we give them that. Whatever they desire, we'll just do. But the amount of people who say, oh look, no, my manuscript doesn't need an edit, and I'm going, yes it does. But if they don't want one, we publish there, we'll just convert it to ebook or design it for print for them regardless. And I regularly am going, oh, don't do this. But
if anyone needs a warning about that, I am a good one for that, because my first 3 books are actually not professionally edited. So all you have to do is read book 3 and book 4, and you see the difference. You feel the difference, the immense difference. My editor is going back to redo books 1, 2, and 3. Thank goodness.
Oh, good.
But oh my gosh, like and book 1 is my lead magnet. So an unedited lead magnet does
It
not
has to be
make for a
brilliant.
good story.
Correct. And these are unfortunately the things, because I will hammer that home, because it is the thing that everyone seems to think is an optional extra. It's not.
No,
It's so
that is
important.
compulsory, and
Yeah,
word
exactly.
edit, like word grammar and spell check, and even pro writing aid grammar and spell check do not count.
They do not. They have their limitations. Any spell check
That's how
is
you clean it up
automatic.
for the
You'll miss
editor.
things. Yeah, exactly. You've really, I mean, I use sometimes a spell checker at the end just to make sure I haven't, missed something, because everybody does miss things. And so I'll just have a look. But yeah, you don't rely on those because they don't catch everything. They don't understand the context necessarily. And also they can't tell you if you've been waffling too long, or if you haven't explained something enough. Those are something that a human has to tell you, and someone who understands story structure and whether the pace is kept up, or whether it's dropped off, or whether you're repeating yourself all the time, which authors do all the time. Authors repeat themselves so often. So, and we all do that. I mean, I was self-editing my latest manuscript last night, and I'm going, oh, look at how many times I've used that word in the one paragraph. Just cut it out, because who does it?
My poison was adverbs. So anything with an ly is now forbidden. And my editor actually said to me, listen, I know you don't put adverbs in your stuff anymore, but you might need to at least put a sprinkling of them through. It's okay. They are still words. You can use them. They're not forbidden entirely. You can still use them. But reading, so another good example of repeating yourself, and I don't know, like, these are professionally edited books, but the Harry Potter series, every book seems to have a very repeated even adverb. So I just remember, I'm not sure if it was book 4 or 5, but it was like she suddenly discovered the word incredulously. And so everyone spoke incredulously.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's I can remember another popular book, of which I won't mention what it was, but she seemed to have just discovered that it was really cool to have people's feet softly hitting the floor when they were trying to be quiet. And she had it like 3 times in the one manuscript. And I'm going, oh, come on. I'm sick of the feet. I
really want to know who that is.
Cut the
Stop
feet.
talking about the feet.
Once is all you should use it. And then you move on. I mean, but I did the same thing back in The Air, my first book. I started to use blinked. He blinked, she blinked, as a way to indicate.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. And it wasn't until book 2 I was writing it and I suddenly went, okay, this is becoming a thing. So I cut it. And I think I've used it in one book once since that time, because any phrase that's used repeatedly becomes a cliche and becomes a distraction. So you gotta be really severe on yourself. And that's my job as an editor too, which is why people hate me. So
I think the lack of that as well. So sometimes said is enough. You don't have to have a verbal descriptor for every single word. It's okay to use said.
You shouldn't, because that's usually a sign that you're telling the audience how your character is feeling rather than showing it. And sometimes you don't need a dialogue tag at all. You put the dialogue in the same paragraph as an action from the character, or a thought from the character if it's your point of view character, and that tells you who said it. So you don't even need he said, she said, and you can cut some of those out too. But they're the best ones because sorry.
I was going to say, I like it when they set up a conversation with 2 and they mention it at the start and then they invisibly switch and you know who's talking because it's a new line.
Exactly. Although sometimes even with those, if they go on too long, people do get sort of going, oh, am I still thinking the right person is saying the right thing? So that's where putting an action or a thought in can help. And it also keeps the reader aware of what the characters are feeling and doing in the scene, rather than just, dialogue after dialogue after dialogue after dialogue. And you can make sure that they stay in more engaged with that. Anyway, so we're talking about editing, and I'll probably spend a while on that because it is my big subject and the area that I know the most about. But then we'll also be talking about the different publishing models, finding traditional publisher, because some people still do want to try that. Querying publishers and agents and things of that nature, the best way to do it. I used to work for a small press traditional publisher, and I did submissions for them at times. And my boss would basically, she'd give me a pile of 200 manuscripts, say, we can have 5. And yeah, and I'd have to go
what a
through.
hard choice.
It was. Well, actually, in some cases it wasn't. It's like, no. But it taught me just how good you have to be in order to engage, because the person who's the submissions editor will be looking at anything to pare down that pile, anything at all. Your query letter, your first paragraph, the title of your book. All these things have to be on point before you start submitting if you want an agent or traditional publisher. So I'll be talking about that too. Then I'll also be talking about structuring a query letter so people know what they should do, because you've got to be very careful not to be annoying and not to waffle, because they're not going to put up with that.
They don't have time. They have too many words to read.
Yeah, like I said, 200 manuscripts to look through. They can choose 5, and they've usually got to do it really quickly. So it's like they're looking for any reason to turf you. So don't give them one. Then after that, I'll be talking too about the other forms of publishing, such as self-publishing, and of course the dangers of vanity publishers, and how to spot a vanity publisher, and how they cozy up to you and say, oh, we think your book's so great, but it's a bit of a risk for us, so we'll go into a co-contribution thing with you. If you put up this money, we'll do the book for you. And it's like, no, you won't, or if you do, it'll be crap. So the things to watch out for there too, and all the because I've heard some horror stories over the years.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and it gets really depressing sometimes. And then of course I also depending on time, I'll be talking more about that after talking to you about the difficulties, especially with things like marketing your book, because I don't know about you, Rhiannon, but for me, that's the hard part. Everything else pales in comparison. Marketing is the most. Now, I won't cover it in great detail because that's a whole seminar on its own. In fact, it's probably like a 6-week course. But I will touch on it, and to just tell people a few key things that they should get going before they publish, if they are going to self-publish. So things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds fantastic. What a practical seminar. That's going to be amazing.
I'm a practical person, so yes, it will be very practical.
Oh, me too. Me too. Oh my gosh. So Lynne, where are you local to?
I'm in Camp Hill, so in Brisbane, so just up on the south side. So yeah, lived most of my life I was actually born in London, but only lived there.
I thought I could hear a proper accent.
Yes. my father, it's interesting because everyone says that, and it's not like I haven't lived here most of my life, but my father always kept his accent. He was British, my mother was Australian. And so we always spoke very good English at home. And of course, being a writer too, I guess I've always just, I had an affinity when I was this really weird kid. I loved Shakespeare. When other kids in class were going, oh God, I'm really into Shakespeare, I'm going, this is so
Me
cool.
Too. Me too. I loved it.
Yes, I liked that. And I loved the language. So I've just always sort of spoken a bit more properly, I guess you could say. Or, with a plum in my mouth is probably a better way to put it. But
I like that.
But with that sort of English lilt. And also I find too the Australian accent is the hardest to pick up and the easiest to lose. So it's
yes. I have to agree with that. Unless you're from like country Australia or Melbourne, Australia. I don't know what it is with Melbourneites, but they seem to have stronger accents. I think Danny Boy, a comedian, said it well, when Melbourneites have a bounce to what they're saying. Hello,
yes.
how are you?
Yeah.
So when I worked on cruise ships, I lost my accent very quickly, but I was on a British cruise ship, and instead of going British, somehow I ended up sounding American to a lot of people.
Okay.
And then the moment that we hit Australia on the world cruise, the Australians were on for like a week. It came back in full. It came back with a vengeance. I was as some people in the British areas and the Indian areas of the cruise ship were like, I can't understand you, Rhiannon. Please speak more slowly.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but yeah, so yes, I do have an English origin, but yeah, most of my life has been spent here, so it's all good.
Oh, wonderful. We're so happy to have you along at the festival this year. It's going to be amazing, and I'm really excited to hear your talk. It's going to be such a practical one, so I hope that everyone who can come along and see Lynne speak in September on the 9th and 10th. So that's a Friday and a Saturday. So make sure you book it out, because the Logan Writers Festival is going to be off the charts this year. It's going to be amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your stories about growth and resilience.
No problem at all.
We will leave links and descriptions about how to find Lynne. What's your best website for people to catch you on?
LynneStringer.com. That's Lynne spelled Lyne, Stringer, string with an ER on the end. So that's the best place to catch me, and you can find links to all my social media on there, and also check out all my latest books.
Definitely. Make sure you grab yourself your books, ebooks and paperbacks.
Yes, both.
Excellent.
And there'll be links on the website, so you should be able to find everything you need there.
Absolutely wonderful. Oh, well, we will see you in September. Goodbye, everyone.
Well done.